Happy Thursday and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So, Jim, what a week.
It's been amazing. I mean, you know, what a patriotic way to celebrate the birthday of America by having all these great stars.
No kidding. We started with Billy, then Melora, then Ron Fields, and today it's just you and me.
Just us.
Like
yes.
we're batching it today.
We're the all stars here.
Yeah, that's right. Circus of the all stars.
Yes.
That's what
But
goodness.
It's going good. We're still in the we're at the South Seas Club again, and we're in Eddie Valentine's office waiting for Stevie to make him a bromo.
Right.
But,
and you know that came.
Go
ahead.
You might want to explain what a bromo is and why you shouldn't be drinking them.
Oh, exactly. That's kind of an interesting thing. With so much great content in our extended episode yesterday, it just didn't seem right to say, excuse me, sir, stop talking about your famous grandfather while we discuss, vintage medicine. So when he says "make me a bromo," he's talking about something called Bromo-Seltzer, which is, if you're thinking Alka-Seltzer, you're not too far off the mark. It's the official recipe when they finally figured it out is acetaminophen, sodium bicarbonate, and citric acid, and it was marketed as a headache remedy, an antacid. There's some great vintage ads. I'm looking at one right now from the Saturday Evening Post. It's got a tennis player named Don Budge, and he says, championship tennis calls for a clear head and nerves like steel. So he likes his Bromo-Seltzer because it relieves his headache and also steadies his nerves. And there's another guy on there talking about who's a famous parachute jumper, apparently, at the time, although I can't quite read his name. Typical, wonderfully vintage marketing where, just buy this bottle like all these other people did and you'll be just like them. It started in 1888, and there was a couple of things with the original formula. The original formula used sodium bromide, and that's where the Bromo brand name came from, which is a tranquilizer. And I think it took a while, but like by the 70s, that was basically banned from the market because it was too strong. You wonder why it steadies your nerves while you're drinking a tranquilizer. And then it used another compound called acetonilide, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. That was the forerunner to the acetaminophen. So it used the acetonilide for pain relief, but you can also use that to make varnish. You can use it to make rubber. For a while, people were using it to develop photographs in the late 1800s. And you can also use it to get cyanosis, liver, kidney damage, and cancer. So that was...
it's a one-size-fits-all, yeah.
Exactly. It's a floor wax. It's a dessert topping, almost literally.
I've got a question. Does Bromo-Seltzer have anything to do with Baltimore? Because I remember driving on 95. There used to be this big clock, and it said like the clock said Bromo-Seltzer on it, but it was like if you think of looking at a clock, it would say Bromo on the top and Seltzer at the bottom numbers. So
yeah, actually it did. When it started in 1888, it was in Baltimore, and that landmark, that the Bromo-Seltzer Tower. Still stands, or at least did as of a few years ago. Yeah, it was, as I was looking at my notes, it was patterned after the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence. So I'm sure when one thinks of Florence, one thinks of sort of crude advertising for something that's not quite snake oil, but dangerous headache remedies.
Tummy aches, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the two things about Baltimore I remember as a kid, the Bromo-Seltzer clock and the giant sign that said Domino Sugar that would light up the night sky. What
I would have loved to have seen... And it's funny, too, when you mentioned the Domino Sugar thing. I just came across that the other day reading about something totally different. But what I would have loved to have seen was that there was a 50-foot Bromo-Seltzer bottle on the top that glowed blue. The Bromo-Seltzer bottles were originally blue and rotated. And it was a thing weighed 20 tons, had 300-plus bulbs, had a crown on the top.
I don't think they didn't have it when did they get rid of it? Or?
So, yeah, they pulled it down in 1936. Citing structural concerns.
Yeah.
So not a lot of great luck for the Bromo-Seltzer brand. By the time Alka-Seltzer came around in 1931, that's obviously when we hear seltzer, at least in terms of a medicine. That's what we all tend to think of as Alka-Seltzer. Or if you're a Seinfeld fan, you think of seltzer and salsa as almost being the same thing. But I was surprised to see that there is still somebody selling something. You can go to Amazon and search for Bromo-Seltzer, and there's a very generic-looking thing you can get. You can buy 20 effervescent tablets. Bromo-Seltzer still sort of shows up as a registered trademark, but it looks very, very simple. Like somebody sat down in Microsoft Paint and made a simple logo. And now, sorry, Jim, I've just lost the modern-day Bromo-Seltzer as a sponsor, making fun of their logo. But it looks...
We're going to take them down off the Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so there's something still out there. And presumably it's the... well, in fact, actually, they list the ingredients right on the front. So it's aspirin as the pain reliever, not acetaminophen, citric acid, and the sodium bicarbonate. Somebody's still using the name. I imagine they must have just sort of bought the name at an auction or something like that. It doesn't appear to have any strong connection to the original brand, but I could be wrong.
Well, the acetaminophen wasn't added until the newer formula, right? Is it right?
Yeah, the acetaminophen replaced, the acetonilide. And
right.
if I'm reading correctly, and I don't, I'm no chemist, Jim. I hate to admit that, but acetonilide, I believe, can also be used in the process of creating acetaminophen. Or there is a connection there.
Oh, they take the poison parts out of it, I guess.
Right. Yeah. It's acetaminophen now with less poison.
Yeah. Because I think acetaminophen was like around the late 50s. I remember when they introduced maybe it was Advil, but they were showing like different medications. Right. Like aspirin came out in the 1880s, and then acetaminophen came out in 1959 or 58, somewhere around there. And then Advil came out. Just remembering that from an old commercial. That's all I know about pharmaceutical history is what I learned from commercials. By the way, for folks listening in Europe and the UK, what we call acetaminophen, is paracetamol.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's the official name for it.
Which is why there's never any headaches there's never any headache medicines in the jungle because of the paracetamol.
Paracetamol. Oh man.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
I dig for my comedy where I can get it. So.
You've suffered for your art. Now it's our turn. So, and paracetamol is a metabolite of acetonilide. So that's why that's whatever exactly that process means. That's the connection as you get to the acetaminophen or paracetamol. So
it sounds good and it works on jet lag. I know that.
Exactly. The modern formula. Stay away from that. Stay away from the tranquilizers and the varnish.
Yeah, Stevie, don't get me a Bromo. Okay.
Yeah. And as far as I know, and we maybe we'll be contradicting ourselves. I don't recall seeing Stevie ever come back with the Bromo.
No, he just wanted to get out of the way. Yeah. Well, I think he can feel a fight brewing between the number 3 box office star in America and the guy that runs the South Seas Club.
I'm wondering if Stevie just went and dumped the tablets in the tank with a mermaid.
Ooh, yeah, physicist, She's headache free.
She is, and tranquil.
In later minutes, we're going to have a bit of mayhem. But the thing that I'm making a bookmark here for later is that I want to watch what happens to the mermaids, because I would imagine somebody spraying a place with bullets. You don't want to be in a tank full of water.
Yeah, no kidding. And we never really see her. I don't recall ever seeing her sort of get out or, fleeing in the crowd scenes. But yeah, as you said, we'll have to watch for that really carefully, because I've always been curious about that. Yeah. And we talked about this a bit yesterday. It's an amazingly extensive bit of set dressing. I mean, that's no small thing on a set to create this tank and bring in all the water and have somebody in there swimming just for, you could have just hung a painting on the wall there and done all the same thing. But it's wonderful.
I had Jim. Now it's Jim's story time. I had a long time ago when I was living in Austin, Texas, going to college. The fellow downstairs from me was an amateur aquariumist, and he built an aquarium. Fortunately, lives on the ground floor.
Uh-oh.
He built an aquarium, and I may have this wrong, but he bought 3/4-inch thick plexiglass walls for this thing, and it was about the size of that tank that we see in Eddie's office. All I can remember is that he had done the math, and the amount of water that was in there was 5,500 pounds. That's 2.5 tons of water in his living room. And as far as I know, it was held together by a couple of bands that he had put around the outside. He built this metal frame, and then he caulked it up and somehow it held in, and he had built like a wooden frame to contain the thing all and keep it tightened up, and he had like turnbuckles and stuff to make sure it wouldn't get loose.
And as far as you know, it never burst or collapsed or anything?
It was a stunning thing. He had these gigantic fluorescent, basically look like shop lights hanging over the top of it, and these enormous. It was a marine tank too. That was the other amazing part of it. It had salt. It was salt water, so he had to balance all that out. He had coral. I just don't know what it was like. Yeah. He'd never get evicted because I don't know what the landlord would be able to figure some way of getting it out. But quite an effect. I don't know what happened to the fellow, but Chuck Wilcox, if you're still out there, just contact me because I'd be interested in find out what you ever did.
Yeah, and what he's up to. What he's up to now.
Yeah.
Hopefully he didn't drown in his living room.
Yeah, meet an untimely end. He could wind up as a special entry in the Autopsy Weekly.
Right, exactly.
How did this happen?
Or
eaten by a shark
on his couch.
Well, it's sort of related to the Rocketeer because there is a tank here, but we're still listening to Paul Sorvino trying to keep his sunny side up and saying that it's a good thing that you brought Jenny in because my boys will be able to take her apart and get the information about where Secord is. Neville has other plans for Jenny.
Right, clearly, we're going to do what I think is necessary. And it's just this little power struggle here is. It never gets old watching these two chew it up together.
Yeah, we're gonna get this in a future minute. I don't mean to spoil anything, but how does he actually have does he always carry with him a vial of chloroform?
Neville, I'm sure he does. It's probably next to his cigarette case, and it's
an oversized handkerchief. Yes,
right, exactly. If he were, an actor today, it would be roofies. But in the golden age,
yeah, he probably carried around like a little blue Bromo-Seltzer sized bottle of of chloroform.
That's probably exactly what it is.
So, I was just trying to figure out where did he pick it up and how. I guess it's like he must have the equivalent of a utility belt. That's all I can think of. But
right. A villain's utility belt.
Yeah, it's always the right thing when you're going out on a date. Eddie's very upset about what happened to Wilmer. I don't know if he blame. He doesn't blame him for Lenny's death, though. I don't think that's just all part of the game. The fact that they were getting chased by the feds.
Right. Yeah. That's that's occupational hazard. But yeah, folding Wilmer in half, which is we've seen now that's Lothar's thing. That's what he does.
Yeah.
It's his signature. It's his calling card.
He's good at it. I don't know how you how do you develop that, but I guess he's worked on it. That's what he's known for.
And of course, on Eddie's desk, if you look carefully off to the right, you see. I'm guessing there's a cigar box, a humidor of some kind, and then the racing form, the obligatory. Yes. Just like any good mobster keeps an eye on the ponies.
It doesn't look very convincing though, and it's just not a. Of all the props, it just doesn't. It seems rather perfunctory.
Right. Yeah. If you look at images, and to be totally fair, I see the word racing and then a little logo of some kind, and I don't see the word form. But knowing what it's supposed to be, and then it's got that sort of frilly border around it. When you look at vintage copies of the daily racing form, that border was more ornate. The font was a little bit fancier. Lots of things like this. This one, as you said, it looks a little bit perfunctory. But again, I guarantee you that nobody in that prop shop was sitting there thinking that 27 years from now, 26 years from now, a couple of nerds on something called the internet are going to be sitting here staring at this after watching it on something called Blu-ray and going second by second. But it does stand out a little bit compared to all the detail we saw in the other newspapers and, every little other detail that you find and you stop on. This was just something quick and dirty.
I was wondering about over there behind the way oversized chair rail along Eddie's back wall there. There's a plant. I was trying to figure out that I was originally thinking that it's Sansevieria, but I think it's just some other kind of house plant, maybe some kind of a modified ficus or something. But
I don't really know my plants. It's kind of interesting with those sort of spiky leaves and then the red tips you can see on the left there.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe a marginalia or my typical guess on something of that time period would have been a Sansevieria, or what people know as a snake plant, or also known as mother-in-law's tongues.
Oh, okay. That's
they do well in low light situations.
So they do well in noir settings, in other words.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, if they're lit by the UV lamps that are hanging over mermaids,
and they cast very sharp shadows, which is
yes.
also important.
Yeah, and so we're getting into the way that Neville is describing Eddie. He says a cheap crook. I know he's trying to get under Eddie's skin, but I don't think Eddie is exactly a cheap crook. He obviously owns the South Seas Club.
Right.
He explains later that it's something that he has to fix. So
and we we've established it as just about the fanciest place in town.
Yeah. Why not the South Seas way around?
Exactly. Better than the Copa or the Brown Derby. And Eddie certainly dresses well. It's even with his jacket off. We talked earlier, when he's got his jacket on, he's just perfectly buttoned down and everything in its place, and now he's a little bit more casual with the jacket off. But
he's still got the studs and the French cuffs and that beautiful paisley vest that it's iridescent.
Yeah, and that double-breasted vest, which is just absolutely classic.
And I'm trying to remember. I don't think he did have with him when he was back at Neville's place. He had in his hand his Homburg, which is rather an unusual. It's not an unusual, but the Homburg kind of replaced the top hat in society as the formal hat. But the idea that he goes out at night in a Homburg, he wears a tuxedo, and he wears a Homburg. That is just a sign that he is a classy guy.
And he's got a pinky ring on each hand.
Yeah.
So, and a bracelet of some kind on his right wrist. I can't tell if he's wearing a wristwatch, but
for those who watch Goodfellas, he also wears a pinky ring in Goodfellas, and I don't know if it's just of the type. That could be his own ring. I would like to find out if he might be wearing his own jewelry. It's rather flashy. It's that blue. I think it's a sapphire that he has on that ring.
It's just all in all, he's just he's well put together,
yeah.
And this and he's got a lot of competition in the room with as Natalie dressed as Neville Sinclair is, of course, with that. What color is his jacket? Neville Sinclair's?
I'm going with purple, like maybe a dark lavender.
Yeah, it's just in some lighting it just looks very gray, but then you get these flashes of color on it. And
one of the things, this is one of our previous guests, our mutual good friend Brian Fees had explained to me that with villains, that you tend to put heroes in comic books. The heroes wear primary colors. They're wearing blue, they're wearing red, they're wearing yellow. I mean, one that breaks with that is Batman, but he does have a yellow, the yellow background to his bat.
Right, and what he jokes what he refers to in some iterations as a big target on his chest, and he's sort of dismissive about it, but...
Exactly, but the villains wear the secondary colors. They typically wear the purples and the oranges and things like that. So they're more that the secondary colors are the colors of evil. So I don't know if Dave Stevens is using that same vocabulary and has suggested maybe he should wear purple. Although our hero wears brown, so that's another secondary.
Right, brown and brass and silver.
Yeah, but purple is generally the color of evil in comic books. So this may be a feature of where he fits in on this the spectrum of good and evil.
And then, of course, as these two are playing back and forth, Eddie is threatening Neville. Basically, if I go down, you're going down with me. I'm going to tell them, I'll tell them everything. And then, Neville has that wonderful line about being the number 3 box office star in America, which is, it's no small achievement, but it's so specific too that it says a lot about his personality, that he wouldn't say like a famous movie star or one of the most popular actors in the country or something like that. He would specifically announce his position, like he's proud of it, but he's also a little bitter about why isn't he number 1 versus number 3.
Well, the funny thing, at the time, the top box office star in America was Shirley Temple.
Ah, interesting.
She brought in the most money at the time. So,
any idea where Errol Flynn would be at this point in 38?
If we're assuming that he's Errol Flynn at $2 million, I think that came in as the Adventures of Robin Hood came in as the highest one. Let me just see here. The Adventures of Robin Hood, according to filmsite.org, The Adventures of Robin Hood was the most expensive Warner Brothers film to date that they had made at $2 million, but it turned out to be the studio's biggest moneymaker. It was the second of 8 films to pair Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. That was the biggest moneymaker, followed by Alexander's Ragtime Band by Irving Berlin.
So Flynn certainly would have been up there.
Yeah.
He's no Shirley Temple.
No, he's catching up to Shirley Temple. Well, Shirley Temple had been the number 1 box office hit since 1936. So he's dealing with a legacy there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there was just an absolutely astounding career.
Yeah, and I don't know how. Maybe he can learn to tap dance or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. And then as Neville Sinclair leaves, we see this an outburst of emotion from Eddie, which we're trying to think if we've seen much else other than slapping the infamous popcorn box. This is just one more little burst of anger where he throws the cigar across the room. And then one of my favorite lines, which we know from Billy, was improv on Sorvino's part. The number 3 box office star in America, and it just comes back saying number three joke. It's just, it's just absolutely priceless. And to put on my Rocketeer bucket list, Jim, I would love to have Paul Sorvino on the show and see if he would refer to you and me as the number 4 and number 5 jerks. Yeah. I don't really want to be number 1 and number 2 jerks because.
Yeah, you got to leave room. There's room for growth.
Exactly. Yeah, I want some potential down the road.
It just hit me that the number 2 box office star in America we had just passed because he was saying hello to Neville earlier. That was Clark Gable.
Oh, so, there you go.
So I guess Shirley couldn't come to the South Seas, but
that's true. She'd have to wait a few years before she could get in. But yeah, and that was that 1-2 punch of just a glimpse of Clark Gable, which you wonder, 25 years ago, certainly I think more people would have recognized him than even would now, but still, I wonder how many people even at the time, especially younger kids, would catch that, understand that little cameo there by the Clark Gable impersonator.
So, a bit of its time. You do kind of need to have a background in this movie, and I don't know if I think the background is dwindling as the years pass.
Right.
So we cut from the well-lit interior of Eddie Valentine's office to the dimly lit dog that's out there on the near Sepulveda, and we see Malcolm hurrying into the Bulldog Cafe. He whips open the door, meanwhile up in the dog's eyeballs a glimmering light shows coming from the radio.
Which that really sounds like that should have been a slang expression at the time. You got the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, and the dog's eyeballs.
the dog's eyeballs, yeah. I love those eyeballs. It's very clever woodwork.
That really is. And it's so detailed and so, I don't know, so ornate even for just the backside of it, for an attic.
Looks like a great big old cookie jar. So... Peavy and Cliff are sitting up there. Cliff is carefully chewing his nails. We're going to talk to Billy tomorrow, so we got to find out about how many times he had to chew his fingernails. But we'll check on that tomorrow.
And whether or not he feels like he did a convincing job.
Yeah, we have that nice 30s announcer tone. You can almost picture the guy cupping his hand to his ear as he's saying, "Helmeted mystery men disappeared into the Baldwin Hills moments after the rearing rescue." All of Los Angeles is buzzing.
Yes. Who is the and then of course for us the minute ends. So
tune in next time. Yeah.
And he's quoting Otis Bigelow, promising that his Birdman will return. Yes. Bigelow just he's got no say in this.
He's also bent over backwards to make sure he comes back. Yeah.
He's also been folded in half by this point. A great little bit of posthumous character development for Bigelow, and that he's absolutely all over it. He's going to capitalize on this. He doesn't know any more than anybody else, but he's named him. He's taking ownership of it, and I wish he would have lived. Would love to have seen what the 1939 Bigelow Air Circus looked like.
The further adventures. Well, maybe it's going to be Patsy's, but we'll find out. By the way, when he mentions Baldwin Hills, this is another thing where we're going all over the place on the geography of the Rocketeer. He disappeared into the Baldwin Hills, which would put him somewhere down near Santa Monica Municipal Airport. That's
okay.
I mean, Culver City, east of Culver City, and he disappeared out that way. But previously, we talked about how it was LAX that he's under, which is further to the north and to the west. So unless people were following him from the street and they were getting further information about where he was flying to, he wouldn't be I would think he would have flown to the Northwest. I still am of the idea that this is up toward Burbank, but now that we have an address for where did he fly after he left? I mean, he landed in a swamp, which seemed to be near Malibu. So,
right. Up by the set of MASH.
Yeah. So I just don't understand where. I mean, it's kind of just it's like when you play those Grand Theft Auto things and everything's kind of merged together. So
right.
It looks like a town, but it's not quite a town.
Just for anybody who was curious like me, there's a couple of things on those shelves that we can identify as the sort of the camera pans down. Way on the left, about second 54 or so, you've got Marvel, and I can't quite see what's at the bottom of those cans. I've Marvel Peaches, or could be almost anything. But then over on the right, the shelves, you've got the McCormick tin of cloves. As far as I know, McCormick is still around as a spice brand. I know we had McCormick spices on the shelves as kids. I don't know why I remember that. I didn't do a lot of spice shopping as a child, but I always remember that logo and that name. And then the one that had me really curious was the Dress Parade box.
Oh, okay.
It's a kind of oblique with the corner sticking out. And finally was able to find that. That's Shinola. Oh. So it's Shinola shoe polish. It's liquid shoe polish. It's brushless. Instant shine. And then it says something else on the right. So there's a little girl and then sort of almost a boy in a soldier's dress hat on the right. And I'm not sure. I haven't seen a great image to say what it says under him, actually. But that's Shinola, so which some people know from the other thing and some people don't.
It's funny how clove used to be a major flavor back, even as recently as the 30s and 40s, that it was, I mean, nowadays when you typically get gum, it'll be either a banana flavor like in Bazooka Bubblegum, which you don't know, it just says banana because it's pink, but that's the predominant flavor in bubblegum. And before that, it was like Wrigley's and Doublemint, which were either spearmint or peppermint flavors, were popular. But at the time, back in the 30s, and reaching back into the 1880s and before, clove was also a typical flavoring in gum, chewing gum, and candies.
Sure. Well, right alongside Beeman's, the same manufacturer had Blackjack was the clove flavored gum. Beeman's is wintergreen. Blackjack is clove. I remember, and there's a third one I can never remember. They kind of, the three of them sort of go together.
Yeah, always available at a Cracker Barrel near you whenever they're making them.
Exactly.
It's kind of odd that you think of cloves as being something you stick on top of ham, or if you've ever seen Marathon Man, you want oil of cloves to put the pain down in your teeth. But I never want to do Marathon Man Minute. That would be a bit much.
Yes, no thanks.
But yeah, clove used to be one of those major spices that they used to fight. The Dutch East India Company made its fortune with nutmeg and clove. So they would pull it in from. It came from the Moluccan Straits. Unfortunately, though, the clove trees that they grew on, the plants that they were from, grew everywhere. They were like weeds, so it's kind of hard for the Dutch East India Company to control the output. So anybody with a boat could sail through, grab some cloves, and then ship it back home. So
not an easy market to corner.
No. So I guess we've gone around the world on this particular episode as Peavy chews his thumb and Cliff cleans his fingernails on his teeth. But we'll talk more about this minute, this little scene here tomorrow. We have our own Rocketeer, Billy Campbell, will be here tomorrow to chat all about what it's like acting in an attic. Anyway, this has been a fun minute, and there's more to come. This is obviously setting up a lot of things, and we'll have to also find out about Malcolm's news. Obviously, he's in a hurry to tell something, so we'll have to find out what thing he has to tell. Join us here tomorrow. We'll talk about it some more. If you'd like to talk about this, if you can't wait till tomorrow, join us at all the usual social media places. At Twitter, you can find us Rocketeer Minute. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. Go to the big site, rocketeerminute.com, and you can leave messages at the bottom of the page and pick up on previous messages that you missed. As always, we really suggest that you go and subscribe on either iTunes or Google Play. Just type in Rocketeer Minute, click subscribe when you see us come up on your search bar. And what else is happening? Please don't forget to watch, if you're in the U.S. or if you're in the U.K., you can watch Billy Campbell's new series, Cardinal, which is available on Hulu in the United States and on Channel 4 in the UK. And, or, if you're in another country, check local listings because it seems to be everywhere. Billy told us the other day that it's on in over 100 markets. So lots of places to watch.
That's amazing.
His great series. Great
to hear him just continuing to have success in such a diversity of roles.
Yeah.
Jim, before we completely pull the plug, I just glanced at my notes and I've got to correct something before I have to apologize on social media.
Okay.
So of the 3 vintage gums, there was actually that we think of Beeman's Blackjack. The other one was actually just called Clove, and it was obviously the clove flavor. I'm still not 100% certain what flavor Blackjack was, but Clove was a separate gum. Now,
maybe licorice. I'm just wondering.
That would make sense. It would probably be a black licorice flavor.
Well,
but
it's something we'll have to chew over, I guess.
Oh boy, that's 2 today.
Yes, you set them up, I'll knock them down.
Yes, that's. Anyway,
well,
you were saying, sir.
I was going to say goodbye, but actually we will say join us here tomorrow when we have another special Billy Campbell episode. So get your timpanis out and get ready for that. But join us here tomorrow as we end the week on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.
Go get him, kid.